Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're gonna go ahead, as soon as I open up this gate, talk about my first outdoor enclosure build. This took a month practically to make, and well, it was quite a lot of work, but definitely worth it, and I am so happy with the outcome. You saw a little sneak preview of it, unfortunately, was not my intention in the previous video, but today we're gonna talk about the ins and outs. I did not record while building this thing. I didn't want to do that for a couple of reasons. One of them being that I stole a lot of this, and by stole I mean I was guided by Joey from Rose City Reptiles on a lot of this build, and I know at some point he'll probably make a video on it, and I think it's, you know, up to him to make that video and produce it for you guys. I don't want to take it away from him, so I'm just going to kind of give an overview and, I don't know, just talk about what I did. So let's get to it. Hey guys, how's it going? You know, it's the beginning of a new year. Oh, we completely bald. Yellow Aki. Okay, so let's start with the inside. I got a temporary plug-in right here because I thought these guys were going to be a little bit bigger. I don't think they would fit through there, but better safe than sorry. Now, the one thing I probably could have did better that I'm going to explain right now because it's kind of in the way is it's a little uneven in terms of how it goes into the ground. So if you do something like this, you might want it to be, you probably want it to be pretty level when it's on the ground, because when I open this up, you got to pull this up right here, and then you can pull it out. Each one of them opens up a little mechanism right here, if I can actually focus on it. And you could open it up from the inside too. Now with this build, you can't do that. I did do it a little bit differently than Joey, but overall it's pretty much the same. Anyway, I can't do it because it's a little off level, so I have to push it down on this enclosure, kind of the door here, and then do it, which requires two hands. So, you know, a little piece of advice there. Okay, so we got it open. Gonna open it up here. Now, eventually, I'm gonna have a second kind of door to this in case anyone wants to try to run out. I also don't have a way to get out of it once I'm inside, so that's another issue. Got a basic pond liner from Lowe's. It's a preformed one, makes it very simple. You don't need a preformed one though. You can get kind of what I have there, that mesh, whatever, the not preformed pond liner. I don't know what you want to call it. It's just pond liner, truly. You can use that too. I just found it a little bit easier to dig a hole in the ground and stick this in it. And then I also have a biofalls. This is an aquascape product. It acts as a filter. There's some lava rocks in there, and then there's two like filtered meshes. And I have a little brick on top just to weigh it down because I did it the wrong way, but still filters fine. That goes down into the pond, and that's 150 gallons. And then I have another aquascape piece of equipment down there, a pump that pumps it back into the biofalls. And I'm gonna try a DIY heater that the king of DIY on YouTube did about 4 years ago or something like that. It's been a while. An inline heater. I'm gonna try that and hook it up to the pump. So I got all the parts, I gotta put it together, and I'll see how it goes, because I want to try to heat this up a little bit, even though they'll probably be going inside in about a month. The pond is pretty clear right now. I let it run for about a day and a half before I put the water dragons in here. They were out. They hide under the mesh here and behind there. That's kind of their little hiding place right now. Anyway, let me know if you want to hear more about ponds and you want me to do more pond-like things in the future. I'm going to be putting a lot of outdoor enclosures in this back acre and a half I have to play with. So I'm sure I'll have a lot of opportunities to do more pond stuff. And let me know if you want to see an actual aquascape build in here. I think it will look fantastic. So next, the ground. Now, I can't really show you this part. I mean, I could, but I really don't want to dig up 20 inches of dirt, and it's just not going to be worth it. I'm already over all that. That was like the hardest part of this build. But I have about an inch apart, maybe a little bit more, wired mesh underneath here, about 20 inches down, a little under 2 feet. It goes underneath all the inside of the enclosure, and then it comes up, and a little underneath some of this dirt is a little raised because there was more dirt than we needed when putting it back, so it kind of raised up around the outside ground level, if that makes sense. But I connect that mesh with the enclosure and this wired mesh on the side here, which we'll talk about in a minute, with a bunch of zip ties. Now, Joey recommended using stainless steel zip ties, and I just use regular plastic ones ranging from 4 inches long to 14 inches long. We got some longer ones up here, if I can zoom out a little bit to go around the piece of wood, but for the most part, they're 8-inch plastic zip ties that I use, and you're gonna need a whole bunch of them. I probably use like 500 in total, not gonna lie, and I went a little OD with some of the zip tying. I mean, you can see all the ends of the zip ties there that I cut. It's pretty much like every other little hoop, especially on the top. Let's look over here, opposite of the sun, so you can see a little bit better. So maybe I overdid a little bit, but first of all, being that it's my first outdoor build, and second, you know, I just really don't want them to escape. I just kind of went over the top, so I recommend it. I'd rather go over the top than under. Now, all this wiring type mesh you see on the inside of the enclosure, that is hardware cloth, and don't let cloth throw you off like it threw me off. This is pretty strong stuff. It is metal. It is really hard to go through. So I think I said 1 inch. I meant a 1/2 inch. This is 1/2 inch hardware cloth. And we just line the entire thing with it. And it's really strong, and it definitely keeps them in. There's no way they're getting out of this hardware cloth. So it's a definite must, especially for your smaller reptiles. The roof as well is hardware cloth, same 1/2 inch. We just tied it around this wood board here, this little piece of plank, I don't know what you want to call it, plywood, I guess, whatever. We did that just so it would prop it up more and it wouldn't slack as much. So that definitely did the job, and I could fit in here pretty perfect, so it works pretty nice. Now real quick, let's talk about what the skeleton of this enclosure is. What is it built off of? This is actually a dog kennel, a 10 by 5 by 6 dog kennel, and this is a brand right here. This is the exact brand that Joey recommended to me. So the bare bones here is just, like I said, a dog kennel, and works pretty well. It's very easy to assemble. I got it delivered to me from, I believe, Tractor Supply Co. Hint or tip, I don't know why I said hint. Joey said that in the spring they actually go on sale for a good price, which is amazing. I didn't get mine in spring, of course, but probably in the spring, especially when I want to get a 10 by 10 for Frappuccino, I'll be looking for these to go on sale. But the easiest part was probably just assembling the dog kennel here. It came in pieces, and all you had to do was connect these here together. So very easy, and they'll drop it off at your place if you have the Tractor Supply Co. near you. So heavily recommend it instead of building your own. Now the only thing that's left is these pieces of sheet metal here. Now there's a couple tips I probably want to give you guys with this. Joey uses a different type of sheet metal. It's more thick. This is very thin. And yes, it does get actually pretty hot, especially in the middle of August. So I put this type of sheet metal. I don't know what his heat's up to in Texas. I gotta imagine it's hot and probably gets as hot as this, but for me, this was just way too hot. So he puts his on the inside. I put mine on the outside because I didn't want the reptiles to get burned. Yes, it would get that hot for this type of sheet metal. So I put them on the outside. I like that for various reasons, specifically for thinner sheet metal that you would be using. One, obviously the heat, it being too hot, you don't want to burn them. And two, sheet metal, if you ever worked with it, is very, very sharp. This has cut me and my dad many times throughout this build, so you don't want them slicing themselves on a piece of sheet metal that's thin. It happens to us, and I'm sure with some of their little toes, it would happen to them. I at least don't want to risk it, so that's why I put it on the outside. And it works just fine. I mean, there is some weird bending here, but the main purpose of having the sheet metal here is kind of to protect their visual on the ground level. They feel a lot more confident when they're climbing up this particular species, Aussie water dragons, so they'll feel a lot more protected up here, seeing out. Obviously, I can't protect the whole enclosure. That would block out the main purpose of what I'm doing here, is trying to get some natural sun for them and some natural heat and doing all outdoors. So, you know, I'm not going to fill it all up with sheet metal, but it's to protect them on the bottom level here. And back here, we get a lot of wild turkeys, we get a lot of deer, and a lot of groundhogs. And I'm sure something, if it got too close, even if it wasn't trying to mess with them, and we get hawks too, but that's why we have that on top there. Hope I showed the right thing. But it just does, I don't want to freak them out, especially because they really kind of rub their face up against this type of stuff, and it'll kind of give them a little bit of a face injury. So you don't want to freak them out. Also acts as shade there. I'm tripping up my words. So, you know, wherever the sun is, when it's rising or setting, it can hit against these different pieces of sheet metal and give them some shade. You know, they like it warm, they like it hot, and they want to be in the sun. But sometimes they want to cool down and go in the shade too. And that's exactly why I also put sheet metal up top here. So for about 2 feet of the top portion here, I have sheet metal going across. So when it's directly above in the middle of the day, the hottest point of the day, and these aren't really giving much shade down here, we also get some shade coming from the top. So there's always a shady portion in this enclosure, and I recommend it even for the hottest, like reptiles. I don't even know what I'm saying, guys. I keep messing up my words. Essentially, I recommend getting some shade even for the reptiles who like it the hottest. So there we go, collected my thoughts. So yeah, that's the entire build, guys, and I'm really happy how it came out. It took me a month to get through this, obviously not working every day, but it did take, you know, probably a good 2 full days of work, maybe a little bit less. You really just want to make sure it's secure. You don't want them to get out. Number one, that gives us a bad name, and it'll probably get on the news knowing how, you know, we're treated in the wider community. So you really want to be sure that you have these airtight, and, you know, you got to respect that not everybody likes reptiles. So I'm sure if one of these guys got out and got in one of our neighbors' swimming pools, then that would not look very good for me. So take your time with it. Other than all I said, I have climbing wood in there. I just got that from around the property here, some of the trees. That was actually one of the hardest things to find out of all this stuff, all the pieces I needed, was to get big pieces of climbing wood. These are pretty big, about 5-6 foot long, maybe even a little bit bigger. That was very difficult to figure out. And the whole pond thing, I hate working with water. That took so much to figure out and do it myself. But I'm very happy they have a nice pond to, you know, relax in and do what they do. I mean, they're water dragons, guys. But that's not going to be necessary in every enclosure. Also, one last quick tip here before talking about price for this enclosure is you might want to get some solar-based lights around these enclosures just for protection at night. Something that you can kind of be able to see the enclosure a little bit if it's in a not well-lit place, which you probably want to do because you do want them to not be distracted by lights at night that are too bright, and these are only 20 lumens, so they really don't light up the enclosure that much at night. It's very dull, but enough to just see what's going on out here. And it also deters any potential annoyances from the outside wildlife. You know, they want to stay under the darkness and not come out into the light. So I would recommend maybe getting some solar-based light around your outdoor enclosures. Better yet, get some fencing around your enclosures, maybe even some electric fencing. That works really well for people down in Florida to keep critters out of their outdoor reptile enclosures or that particular area. Just make sure you label it well so nobody accidentally bumps into it. But that's what I would like to do eventually here. All right, guys, let's head inside and I'll put some numbers together and I'll go ahead and I will let you know roughly how much I spent on this thing. It's going to be rough. I didn't use all the materials I bought. I have to return some, and my dad even helped me out because it was a little expensive. So I'll do my best here, but it's definitely going to be a rough estimate, but definitely expect over $1,000. Oh, hey guys, welcome to my new office. So after adding up all the numbers in the video, this is the total I come to. Total of $15,000, I was about to say $15,000. $1,578.73. So that's $1,578.73. So you can probably round it up to $1,600. That's probably a good total for this. Now remember, a significant portion of this, I would say, I mean, it was $300 plus 2 something, so a little over $500 is the pond. Actually, on top of that is the preformed pond liner, which is another $100. So you're looking for the pond alone, $600 to $700. So if you're not doing a pond or you're doing a much smaller version and you don't need all that type of equipment, that's probably like $700 right off of that total price right there, bringing you under $1,000. So that's what I spent in case you guys are looking forward or looking to do this yourself. Anyway, guys, that's the video. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. I would really appreciate it. All product links in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I hope if you're doing an outdoor enclosure, this was helpful to you because it was a big endeavor for myself. So wish I had this video ahead of time. Anyway, guys, see ya.